So hello everybody. Last time there was some technical issue with my system. I think I have resolved that. So I'll just share my screen and we can begin with the class. I will also reintroduce myself for the learners who are new or you have this is the first class that you are joining, right? Yeah. So I hope my screen is visible now. Uh, we'll go into presentation mode. Yeah. So hello everybody. I am a TA for your course Introduction to Professional Scientific Communication that you have registered on NPTEL. So I am a Prime Minister's Research Fellow. And I am currently pursuing PhD at Department of Biological Sciences and Bioengineering at IIT Kanpur. And I am in fact a student of Professor Ganesh. So he is my PI. Along with that, I'll also be taking this course. So, in case you have any queries, you can always reach out to us, right, during these courses or otherwise on the discussion forum so that we can help solve your queries, right? Apart from that, how these courses are meant to be is that, at least from my end, I will take these courses into separate, like there will be a division. The first lot will basically have previous year assignment questions. So whatever assignments that you get for your current week, the assignment that's has not been submitted yet, right? So for instance, week two assignment is live now. Week three lectures have also become live now. Soon you will also get week three assignment. So currently, week two assignment is live, and you have to submit that, right? In case there is some problem with the questions in this particular assignment, I cannot directly, help you with those, but we can solve similar questions from last year and last to last year's assignment, so that it will probably help you build, concepts regarding this year's assignments also. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to take up questions that were posed in 23 and 24. And these, similar concepts might help you in solving this year's problems as well. So yeah, we'll just begin with this part. Part two that I was referring to has more to do with, extension of what has been taught to you. For instance, today we are briefly going to talk about abstract and hypothesis. Apart from that, there was a concept of biomimetics that was introduced to you. That is another concept that I will, discuss a few more examples regarding, because it is just a very kind of interesting topic to talk about, right? So yes, I'll just begin with the lecture. If at all there is any problem with the connections, which I don't think there should be, but you can reach out to me, right? Okay. So this is the first question that we'll be dealing with today, which is, this is a series of images which serves as an illustration for which one of these? Is it inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning or common sense or discovery? So this is a concept that we have, two of these concepts, inductive and deductive reasoning, we have discussed in the last session, right? It was introduced to you last week. Common sense and discovery is something that you have just discovered, right? It is a pretty simple question. I would like you to go through the question to ponder upon the answer. Okay. So the answer for this particular question is inductive reasoning, right? Why is it inductive reasoning? Because we are basically proposing an answer just based on observations, right? Based on a preset observation, we are supposed to give an answer basically. We are not supposed to form a hypothesis or theory, then test that theory and then come to a conclusion, but we are directly coming to a conclusion based on the limited number of observations that we have, right? So that is basically the essence of inductive reasoning. So it is an illustration for inductive reasoning, right? So let us come to question number 2. Yeah, so briefly going through the concept again. What is was inductive reasoning? When there is a specific observation based on which we recognize a pattern and we come to a conclusion. That is basically inductive reasoning. While the counter, that is deductive reasoning, basically goes by this that first there is a theory that exists, right? Based on that theory, we form a hypothesis. Based on this hypothesis that we have formed, now we collect more data, right? Then we will analyze this data, and then either we will reject the hypothesis, we will modify it, or we will support the hypothesis, or it will be proven, right? Coming to question number 2. So the image given below, that is this one, represents which one of these? Verbal communication, written communication, visual communication, or all of these? Okay. So similar kind of question we had done last week also. It is basically an example of visual communication, right? It is definitely not written communication. It is a printed form of visual communication, right? There is nothing that is like, even if the stop was not written over here, this symbol actually represents that, right? This represents that you are not supposed to go over here, right? This suppose represents a bridge that is coming, right? So these are common symbols that we all are aware of, especially the people who are driving. So, because whenever you are getting a license, you take a driver's test in which you are asked or questioned about these specific symbols, right? And other such knowledge. So it is actually a form of visual communication. Nobody's saying anything out loud. So it is not verbal. Some people might get confused whether it is written communication or not. But as I told you last time, sometimes you can go with option elimination to come to the correct answer, right? If you are confused between two answers, you can always go to with option elimination, because some people, what they do is they think that it is also a form of written communication as well as visual communication. So maybe the answer is all of these, right? So, what you need to remember is definitely it is not verbal communication, right? Now, what are the three options left? B, C, and D. If it is definitely not A, it can definitely not be D as well, right? So, all of these will also not be true because A is not true, right? Then you are left with these two answers, B and C. So, whichever is best fitting is actually the answer. So, that is C, that is visual communication. Okay. Then the third question is, this image represents one of the commercial advertisements for a product, right? Here we identify the leading man who is wearing a white coat and a tie as cleanliness, head of the family, research and development, or a modeling career. So again, a similar kind of question you have done last week also, right? I will just close this door. There is some noise from outside. Uh, yes. Mm, yeah. So this image actually, this person who is being talked about, the one who is wearing a white coat and a tie, is actually representing research and development, right? So it is a very common practice in especially in terms of bath products or detergents or some such cleanliness or hygiene related products, or even sometimes in some products that people are promoting to be eaten for good health, which are good for health, right? In these cases, it is a common practice that somebody who is actually, wearing a white coat is represented such that it gives an image that it has been a well tested, or it gives an image of, valid lab testing, and that there were no, whatever they are claiming, for instance, over here it is 100% protection or 99.9% it removes germs. That is a claim that they have, and they want you to believe that there has been enough research that has gone behind them being able to claim that, right? So this is the answer for this one. Then question number 4 is, which one of the following options is a true definition with regard to finding discovery in science? Right? Finding something that had not been known before, an accidental outcome, an outcome of a well-defined and planned activity, or all of these. So you can go through the options once. I'll just So the answer for this one, what is discovery basically, is to find something that had not been known before, right? Now it could have like, it may or may not be accidental, right? Because you might be thriving to look at something in that direction. For instance, there you might come across a lot of headlines about, not a lot of headlines, but if you are reading in that area, you will come across multiple headlines regarding a new species of a beetle being discovered in Amazon, or a species of moth being discovered in a particular forest setting, right? So that basically means that something already existed, right? It doesn't mean that it has come into existence right now. That is why it has been discovered right now, right? It is something that had always existed, but now is when we have discovered its existence, right? Something that was not known by us, but yes, it might have existed before. So it is not basically an outcome of a well defined and planned activity, right? I cannot go out with this aim in my head that, okay, today I am going to a jungle. I definitely need to discover a new kind of snake, right? For that to be possible, I need to memorize all the kinds of snakes that are already discovered, right? For me to find something different, right? So that is not what discovery is. It is, the first statement is the most fitting, that is finding something that had not been known before, basically, right? So this brings us to question number 5. In the statement, I was born in India, India is the seventh largest country by area and the second most populous country in the world. So over here, till India, actually, it was supposed to be in red, and after that, it was supposed to be in green. So the text given in red and green color fonts represent respectively the theory and the hypothesis, the given and the new concept, the cause and consequence of an experiment, or none of these. Okay, so the answer to this one is given a new concept, right? So, for instance, I am currently in a foreign country, maybe in Germany, right? And I am explaining this to somebody, right, who is sitting just by my side. So, even if they don't know me, or most probably they do know me, that is why I am extending more knowledge about where I come from, and what are the major characteristics about that area, right? Or even if they don't know that I am already from India, they can at least guess that, okay, this person, by how she speaks, or by the accent in her voice, she looks South Asian and not from China, maybe not from Korea. She looks somewhere from India or Sri Lanka or Pakistan, right? So I have that kind of complexion, I have that kind of build, I have that kind of accent when I speak, right? So somebody can make that out. So the first statement is, I was born in India, right? So that is will be a given statement, right? That okay, this is a fact that I was born in India, right? That is something that somebody might already know or might be aware of up to some extent, right? Because I am saying that and I look like typical Indian person. Then the second statement is, India is the seventh largest country by area and the second most populous country in the world, right? Now, if you are not from India and you are not really excellent in geography, you might not have come across this particular uh, fact that India is the seventh largest country. People generally know that it is the second most populous country after China, right? Because that is how the world markets are determined, and India is one of the world's biggest market because of its population. So that is still a concept that some people are aware of. But it is the seventh largest country by area. Now, this is something that we are taught in geography, right? Because we are living in India. Somebody who's living in Russia might be taught that Russia is the largest country by area, right? Or somebody who's living in maybe UK might be taught where that country comes in terms of area that it occupies in the world, right? But for instance, I don't know who is like, I know the largest country by area, but I am not aware of what country comes second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Right after that, I know India. Yes, India is the seventh largest country by area. Right. So that is a new concept that you will be telling anybody who you are telling this statement to. So it is basically a given and a new concept. Okay. So, the sixth question is, the term scientifically acceptable general principle based on an experimental evidence refers to hypothesis, theory, law, or common sense. Okay, so the answer for this one is theory, right? So the Mm, basically, definition in a way for theory is this only, the scientifically acceptable general principle based on experimental evidence. That means there is a general understanding about this. People generally know that this is true, and there is some experimental evidence based on which they know that yes, this is true. That is why it is a theory, right? For instance, a Big Bang theory, right? It is known that there was a God particle or Higgs boson particle that might have, this theory is well experimented. So we know that yes, that it might these particles might have collided, that might have made a huge explosion, after which maybe all living beings might have come to living as a life form that we know now, right? Eventually, it developed into the life form that we know now. But that is how life might have started or originated, right? So that is a theory, right? And it is based on some experiments. Correct. What is a law? A law is basically a well-researched theory in which we know through experimental evidence that this is the case, and we know why this is the case and how this has happened, right? When all of the answers are, proven and provided, that is when it becomes a law, right? In theory, we know based on experimental evidence that this is the case, but we might not know why this is the case or how this came to be the case, right? Hypothesis, on the other hand, is just a statement. So, based on some pre-existing theory, somebody might have decided that, okay, I have observed this, and a little bit of this is known about this particular area. Based on that, I think that this case might be possible. And for instance, um, if I see a new object that is flying, right, I will think that, okay, either this object might have a very light weight, or the object's body might be aerodynamically sound, or somehow it might be resembling birds in some way, which is aiding that particular new object to fly, right? So that is a hypothesis. Now I will do my experiments to solve this or to prove this hypothesis, right? So that is hypothesis is a conditional statement that may or may not be true. And common sense, as we all know it, is a general, knowledge or awareness about a subject, right? Then we come to question number 7, which is the illustration presented here is an example of a research project paradigm that outlines the various steps one should take when organizing and carrying out any research project. Choose the option that most accurately describes the schematic shown and the overreaching idea that links each spoke. Right? So we have looked at this particular representation at least twice or thrice last week as well. Right? So which one of these is true? It is an inquiry wheel, and it describes asking question, or literature citation and asking questions, or communication and hypothesis, or inquiry wheel and results, right? So which one will be the correct answer? What is the schematic is the first choice, and what is the overarching idea that links each spoke? That is this, right? That is this part. Okay, so the answer for this one is D, that is inquiry wheel. Oh, sorry, inquiry wheel and asking questions. Sorry, I just saw the first part, right? So each spoke basically represents asking questions. So you observe something, based on that, you ask questions. Then, after you come up with a hypothesis, you basically define the problem, right? Again, you have to ask question as to how I am going to solve this problem. Then you come back, right? Based on how, like the answers that you get, you form a question. Based on this question, again, you have to go to literature, check like how this particular question can be answered, right? Then what I'll do is whatever is known about this question, I will, try to understand that. Then I'll ask questions again, and based on that, I will plan my experiments, and I will also tell that what is the expected outcome that I am I am thinking will be observed based on the existing knowledge that I already have, right? Then I'll carry out my study. When once my results are already there, I need to ask like what to do with these results, or how to basically analyze them, right? Thereafter, I'll interpret these results, and then we also need to ask like how to represent these results such that I will communicate them properly in as my findings, right? So the core of this particular schematic represents inquiry wheel, while the spokes represent asking questions. Yeah. So this is what. Okay, so which of the following definitions of hypothesis is accurate? Is it our observations around the world as it is, or a proposed explanation for a phenomena made as a starting point for further investigation, or a well substantiated explanation acquired through the scientific method, or all of these? So I think again a similar question we have done already. Uh, just let me have water. You look at this question, we'll discuss. So the answer for this particular question is option B, that is, a hypothesis is basically a proposed explanation for a phenomena made as a starting point for further investigation, right? So before planning experiments, before everything, based on whatever knowledge we have on a research topic or on a area that we want to further research into, right? We will propose an explanation for a phenomena. We think that this is what is happening, and based on that, we will further plan our experiments, right? So it is a starting point for further investigation. Yeah. Coming to question number 9. Sorry. So in writing a research paper, the term hourglass concept refers to preparing timeline and agreeing on the timeline for writing and submission of a research paper, or using an hourglass for the scientific reasoning, or structure of research paper, the starting with a general overview, narrowing to a specific aim, then again extrapolating the results to a generic concept, or none of these. So I think it is a very simple question. The answer is very obvious, right? Especially if you have gone through this week's course already, week 2 lectures, it is much more obvious. So the answer is C, right? So what does an hourglass look like? It basically has a broader top, then a narrower middle, and again a broader bottom, right? So it basically represents a general overview that we are starting with. Then we narrow down to a specific aim, and then we again generalize, right? So for instance, I have a research topic, right? So my research topic is to basically understand or characterize what are the changes taking place in a particular disease model I'm looking at, right? But how did I arrive at that question, right? Because there is a much larger, requirement for me to, or for anybody else to look at some such question, right? So I always like, if I have to explain my work, what I will say is that I work on neurodegenerative disorders, right? So there are multiple hypotheses as to how neurodegenerative disorders are caused or how they progress with age, right? One There are two major hypotheses that are put forth. One is that there is protein accumulation due to which it is caused, and the other is that there are a which the other one is known as a vascular hypothesis, which says that there are changes in the blood supply and consequently the oxygen and glucose supply to the brain, due to which these changes start occurring, due to which protein aggregation starts forming, etc., right? So what I want to do is I want to look at a particular kind of I want to look at a particular kind of neurodegenerative disorder, and I want to use this particular model, that is a knockout model for a particular gene that basically will recapitulate some of the neurodegenerative phenotype in my mind, in my mouse. And studying this model, I want to understand what is coming first, right? Are the neurodegenerative changes preceding the vascular changes, or the vascular changes are preceding the neurodegenerative changes, right? So I work with neurodegeneration. I have narrowed down to what I am aiming to do, right? Then after I have done my work, I will again generalize that this is what was the observation that I found in my neurodegeneration model, right? Since the kind of phenotype this particular mouse model shows also resembles some other neurodegenerative models that are already present in the field. So we think that this, knowledge can be extrapolated to other models as well. And based on that, I can say that based on my observation, uh, maybe vascular changes will be preceding neural changes if this is the case, right? So that is what I will come to. So again, I will extrapolate to a more generic concept. Then we come to question number 10. That is, several summers ago, there was a Scotty who went to a country for a visit. He decided that all the farm dogs were cowards because they were afraid of certain animal that had a white stripe down its back. In this sentence, the text given in blue and red color fonts represent respectively the given and new concept, the theory and hypothesis, the cause and consequence of an experiment, or none of these. So this might be a little tricky, this question. So you can go forward and you can try to, understand what will be the answer for this one. Okay. So the answer for this one is none of these, right? Which is why I said this might be a little tricky for you. Why? Because what is being said over here? Let's look at the statements again, right? Several summers ago, there was a Scotty who went to the country for a visit, right? So let us consider that this Scotty is a person, right? He went to one of the countries for visit. And on his visit, what he decided was that all the farm dogs were covered because they were afraid of a certain animal that had a white stripe down on its back, right? So we don't know which is the animal that is being talked about over here, but let us consider that there was another animal. It might have been a bigger dog, it might have been a wolf, or some other animal uh, that these farm dogs were afraid of, right? So we don't know how he has decided that this farm dogs were afraid of this particular animal and how he has come to the conclusion that these farm dogs were cowards, right? So all this is something we don't know. It looks like it is more of a presumption, right? And it is definitely not a given and new concept. There is no concept that we already know of that is being talked about in the first statement that several summers ago Scotty went to the country for a visit. Uh, we don't know that, right? This is new information to us, as is the other statement that is also new information to us. So we can't really say that it is option A, right? Neither is it a theory and hypothesis, right? If you look at this red colored statement or the statement 2, wherein he's saying that all farm dogs are cowards because they are afraid of a certain animal, right? This doesn't sound like a hypothesis, right? This sounds more like a statement, right? So it is definitely not a hypothesis. And it is also definitely not the cause and consequence of an experiment. Why? Because it is not that this second statement is dependent on the first statement, right? It is not because Scotty went to a particular country that the dogs are actually cowards or that they are afraid of that this particular animal, right? It is not connected. It is not interrelated. So it is not even cause and consequence of an experiment. So the actual answer or the most relevant answer to this one will be none of these, right? I hope it is clear. Yeah. Then, okay, it is question number 11. Please ignore this one. So in the image given here, A and B depict which one of these? Visual and verbal communication respectively, visual and non-verbal communication respectively, verbal and oral communication respectively, or none of these. So this is another simple one. The answer for this one is visual and verbal communication, right? So A option depicts visual communication. Again, there are some signs that are given, and there is nothing written on it, or there is no context given. But we know that this one is a a sign for recycling. This one is a sign for danger. This one is one for zebra crossing. This one is generally for male and female. We find it outside washrooms very commonly, and this one is for a place that does not allow smoking, right? So it is a form of visual communication, right? The B part, however, is a verbal communication, right? It is depicting a scene of a verbal communication. So we see that three people are sitting and it looks like they are in conversation, right? This a person seems to be telling something to the other two, right? So they seem to be in a conversation. So thus, that is also a form of or a representation for verbal communication. Okay. So the following four bullet points delineate some key aspect of creating a well-written abstract. Determine the precise sequence of their occurrence, which might aid in developing a well-written abstract. Right? So, what is a correct sequence? It is context, task, need, or outcome. In what order will we arrange these four: context, task, need, and outcome, to basically determine how a well-written abstract is actually framed? So please go through this question. Think about what the answer is going to be. Okay. So maybe we can discuss the answer for this, which is option number C, that is A, C, B, and D, right? So first we need to know the context, right? So we need to be aware about what we are discussing about, right? So for instance, I want to work about, I want to work on, you know, uh, maybe tuberculosis, right? But I am going to a lab that works on neurodegeneration. So how am I going to work on tuberculosis in a lab that is working on neurodegeneration, right? There will not be the correct resources. People over there might not be that aware about what is going on in the field of tuberculosis, and the department might not be well equipped for such a work, right? So if I'm planning to do something, I need to be aware of the context, right? So I need to be aware of where I'm going to work, what is the kind of work that is generally done over there. And based on that, I will find that what is the need, right? So I came to a neurodegeneration lab, for instance, right? So then I need to understand what is the kind of neurodegeneration this lab works on, right? What is the kind of um, knowledge that is known about this particular disease? What are the knowledge gaps that are that we are aware of, right? So that is where this comes, the need, right? So first we need to get a context that, okay, I should be aware what is the area that I'm working on. Then what is the need of the hour in that area, right? What is already known on that area and what has scope to be worked upon, right? So that is a need, right? Then based on the need, I will design some tasks, right? Which could be my objectives or my experiments as to how will I overcome this need, right? Or how will I fill in this knowledge gap, right? Based on these tasks, once I perform these experiments, I will get an outcome, right? Which can be my observations and my conclusion, right? So this is actually the correct answer. That is option number C, that is A, then C, then B, and then D. Context, need, task, and then outcome. Then we come to question number 13, that is the art class structure in a scientific communication is very helpful for writing research articles, right? Identify the sentence that correctly defines A, B, C, and D in the given art class structure. Right, so go through these options whether A, B, C, and D are introduction, method, results, and discussion, or method, results, introduction, and discussion, or discussion, method, introduction, and introduction, or introduction, discussion, results, and method. Right? So, which one of these is going to be correct? So, I hope you have all gone through this question. Let's now discuss its answer. It is the first one, right? So even if this hour class was not given to you, right? If only a publication or a research article was being talked about, you should still have been able to answer that this is actually the correct order in which a research article should be written, right? First, you introduce, right, what will go in the introduction, what is the research area that you are talking about, what is the specific research topic that you have chosen, what is the known about that research topic in general, what is the thing that is not known about in it in general, why should it be known about, and then what are you planning to do in order to find out what is not known, right? Then comes method, right? uh, to find out what is not known, what is the methodology that you are going to apply, right? How are you planning to do your experiments? Then comes result, right? Whatever methodology you have applied and whatever results you have obtained, you need to explain them, right? Then comes discussion, right? So in results, generally you report observations or you report results, right? How it is connected to other existing literature, how it correlates with the knowledge in the field, or how it goes against it, or how it supports it, is all that you discuss in this particular section, that is discussion, right? So this is going to be the correct answer. Yeah. So, which of the following option describes the statement, the ability with which human beings process perceptions, memories, and imagination in order to reach basic judgment? Is it abstract or common sense or vision or none of these? Okay, so another relatively simple question. The answer is common sense, right? Because it is an innate ability that somebody has to process something and to come to a conclusion, right? So it is what is common sense? It is ability by which with which basically human beings process perceptions, memories, and imagination in order to reach basic judgment, right? That is common sense. Then, which section of research article follows the pre-described format and consists primarily of 100 to 300 words, covering most important aspects of the entire research article? Is it the title or the abstract or the method or the results? Another straightforward question. Please go through it. Try to come to the correct answer. Okay. So the correct answer over here is abstract, right? Abstract is not very long. It is not like an essay. It will be a shorter, paragraph or two paragraphs maybe. It will be a short description of the most important aspects of whatever is there in your research article, right? It is like Sir said, it is like an advertisement, right? In an advertisement, you get a very short amount of time, maybe spanning across 20 to 30 seconds, in which you have to get across what is the thing that you are selling, why is it being sold, why is it beneficial to you, and how it is better than other things in the market, right? So all this you have to convey in a very short time. Similar is the abstract. When it comes to your research article, it performs the similar function of advertising your research article, basically, right? Everybody is not going to just go on the website or go and read the research article. Some people need motivation of a good abstract for them to be able to do that, right? Okay, so coming to question number 16, which of the following options correspond to the notion of light before heavy in a scientific narration, right? The front door of vehicles in heavy duty vehicles, development of heart followed by the development of brain, simple topic followed by a complex topic, complex concept, or all of these. Okay, so the answer for this one is simple topic followed by a complex concept, right? So light before heavy, meaning that before bombarding with a lot of crucial information, first you give some crucial information, right? Don't bombard anybody with a lot of jargons, right? First you introduce something in a very light manner that they will grasp, right? After that, you can explain the complicated things also. First, explain the simple thing, then you come to the complex thing. Then, question number 17. A team of biologists have identified a fungus strain called Rika that thrives in very humid environments. The researchers extracted and analyzed this fungi's genetic material and sequenced its genome to detect any unique variant in DNA that provides resistance to high levels of humidity. A specific DNA sequence, referred to as the HM sequence, was found in the Rika strain of fungus but was absent in all other documented strains. Assuming that they did not do any further experiments, identify the option which is the most suitable hypothesis for their observations, right? So, read the entire question, entire paragraph again, and first understand what is their observation, right? Based on that, let me read the options once. You have to identify the suitable hypothesis. Option 1 is HM sequence is essential for survival of Rika strain under humid conditions, or tolerance of Rika increases in the presence of HM sequence, or HM sequence is responsible for increased nutrient availability for Rika strain under humid conditions, or none of these. So go through the question once again and then try to go through the options and answer which one of these is the most suitable hypothesis. So I will give you around 2 minutes to read the question again. Then we'll discuss. Okay. I'll just have a short water break. hope you have come down to the correct answer. Okay, so the answer for this one is HM sequence is essential for survival of Rika strain under humid conditions, right? So I gave you a hint that first what you need to do is you need to observe, you need to read, and you need to find or spot what is their observation, right? What is the observation that they are giving in this paragraph? So what was the observation? They said that a specific DNA sequence referred to as HM sequence was found in this particular strain of fungus, but it was absent in all other documented strains, right? That was what was the observation that they had made, right? Based on just this is the correct hypothesis or the most suitable hypothesis that this particular sequence, that is HM sequence, is essential for survival of Rika strain under humid conditions, right? Because what they said was this is the only fungus that is actually surviving at such humid conditions. All the other strains that we saw that do not have this sequence, and we can assume that since this is the only strain that is surviving, the others don't survive at this humid condition, right? So this is what is making it different from the other ones, and it might be essential for survival of this particular strain under humid conditions, right? What were the other two hypotheses that were given? One said the tolerance of Rika increases in presence of HM sequence. Right? This is something that has not been talked about in this paragraph, right? Because in order to prove this hypothesis, what would have been the experiment? Instead of just doing DNA sequence, what they would also have done is that they would have tried to remove this particular sequence, right, from this Rika, and then check again, introduce it into the same environment and check whether it can still survive, right? So based on that, they will be able to conclude that the tolerance of Rika will increase in presence of HM sequence, or it will go down in the absence of HM sequence, right? So that is an experiment that has not been done or not been talked about over here in this statement, right? Then the third one was HM sequence is responsible for increased nutrient availability for Rika strain under humid conditions. Again, this is a hypothesis which, in order to have been tested, we should have looked at the nutrient, condition in this particular fungus, right? Like what is the amount of glucose that it has, what is the amount of, metabolites that are already present in this particular strain of fungus, but nobody has looked at it, or it has not been talked about in this particular paragraph, right? So we don't know whether it is increasing nutrient availability or whether there is some other mechanism that it is basically targeting, because of which it is, able to survive under this humid condition, right? It might be possible that it is decreasing the nutrient requirement for this particular strain, right? So if the requirement goes down, even then it will be able to survive, right? Or it might be increasing nutrient availability. Whatever the case is, the it has not been explored over here, right? So that is why this can also not be the suitable hypothesis that is basically, based on which the study might have been done, right? Yeah. So the hypothesis is a clear statement of what is intended to be investigated. It is based on either observations or an existing theory. So the other two did not follow that criteria, right? Then question number 18, a structured research project does not necessarily have to have the following components. It should not be quantifiable or verifiable or replicable or commercially viable. So which one of this is the correct option? So the correct answer is that it needn't necessarily be commercially viable, right? There are some researches that are not meant to be commercialized. It is just meant to increase knowledge on a particular subject so that, more research can incremental research can be done on that particular subject based on which eventually we can lead to some material or some therapeutic that can eventually be commercialized, right? So like some of the researches might just be for characterizing a particular strain, right, or characterizing a particular species that is not commercially viable, right? But it has to be quantifiable. Whatever we are saying should be quantitative. It should be verifiable. If we are saying something, if some other person comes across that same species or that same strain, they should be able to verify our claims, right? And it should be replicable. That is, if we are saying that this particular species has 10 stripes, right? Somebody else who comes across the same species should also be able to, replicate this finding that yes, this particular species that you have described, I have also come across it and it does have 10 stripes, right? So, these three are important qualities, right? The fourth one, that it being commercially viable or not, is dependent upon what is the kind of research topic that you have. It is not necessary to for your research project to always be commercially viable, right? Okay. So this statement I have already discussed in the last, session. But for those who had not attended that particular session, let us go through it again. So critically review the image given here and identify the line which depicts the hypothesis. Line 1 says the screen of Ramesh's laptop goes black and there is no noise coming from the laptop. Line 2 is what might have gone wrong with the laptop as the screen went completely black and it is no longer producing any noise. Then it is possible, line 3 is it is possible that the laptop shut down due to a hard disk failure or the battery discharged completely, hence the laptop turned off, or the laptop entered hibernate mode. Right? And line number 4 is also if the battery is fully discharged, the laptop fan should also not work. Right? So which of these lines is actually a hypothesis or depicts a hypothesis? Okay. So line number 3 is actually what is a hypothesis, what is a hypothesis, right? So what is line number 1 saying? It is describing a problem, right? That the screen of Ramesh's laptop has basically gone black, right? And it is also stating that there is no noise that is coming from this laptop. So what it is telling is it is describing a problem, right? The second line is coming up as to it is defining as to what is known, right? That the line 1 was describing what was known, that Ramesh's laptop has gone bad and there's no noise that is coming from laptop, right? Line 2 is defining what's the question that he should ask to solve what is unknown, right? So if in line 1 he doesn't know what the problem is, right? That is what line 2 is describing, that this is what is not known. What might have gone wrong with the laptop is not known, right? Then line 3 is giving a hypothesis of what could be the problem, right? It is possible that it shut down due to hard disk failure or battery discharged, hence the laptop turned off or it went into hibernate mode, right? So that is what is describing a hypothesis. And line 4 is adding to that knowledge that if the battery is fully discharged, the laptop fan should also not work, which in fact it is not working. That is why the noise is not coming from the laptop. So it is possible that the battery is the one that is faulty, right? Then we come to the last question, which is in the statement, Deepak has a farmhouse. In his farmhouse, there are 6 rooms and a large open area outside. In the outside open area, Deepak has many pet animals. Most of them are dogs. In the text, given in blue and red color fonts, represent respectively the following: common sense and discovery, theory and hypothesis, given and new concept, and cause and consequence concept. So which one of these is the correct answer? So the answer is that it is a given and new concept, right? So you can always go by option elimination over here. There are a lot of questions that I tell you to do that with, because the options might be a little confusing, right? Or you might not directly come to the or narrow down the right answer, correct answer. Sorry. Yeah. So it is definitely not common sense that Deepak has a farmhouse, right? It is not something that one might know of general awareness, right? So it cannot be option A. It is not common sense and discovery. Option B is theory and hypothesis. Does this red statement look like hypothesis? What it says is in the outside open area, Deepak has many pets. Most of them are dogs. It is a statement. It is not a possible that it is possible that he has many pets and it is possible that most of them are dogs. It is not said like that, right? So it is definitely not a hypothesis, right? Is it a cause and consequence? Because Deepak has a farmhouse, most of the pet animals that he has are dogs. No, that is also not the case, right? So, his pet animals being dogs are not related with the fact that he has farmhouse and there are 6 rooms in the farmhouse and it has a large open outside area that is open outside, right? That is not the case. So, it is also not cause and consequence. However, there is a given and new concept, right? So, what is being given to you is that Deepak has a farmhouse. In that farmhouse, there is a large open area outside, right? So, that is what somebody is telling you. On the basis of this knowledge, they are adding to the knowledge that in that outside open area, Deepak also has many pet animals, and most of these pet animals are actually dogs, right? So there is a concept that they are giving you, and then they are adding on to it with new information is being added onto that particular concept. So right, so it is a an example of given and new concept. So that brings us to the end of the first part of the presentation, which was to discuss basically these assignments, right? Uh, and we'll come to part two of the presentation, which is to it is basically designed to either look at extra questions and concepts or for doubt solving, which are the doubts that people generally have and they generally post in the discussion forum. For you guys, the discussion forum has been unexpectedly quiet, like we have never had an empty discussion forum. So what we are gathering out of that is maybe you are either understanding everything or you are too shy to ask questions. So whatever is the case, this part I have obviously not been able to include because there were no doubts that were there or were posted in the discussion forum. So what we are going to deal with is generally extra concepts because questions we have mostly dealt with already in the first part of the presentation, right? So there are some key concepts. I told you that we will go through, the abstract, the concept of discovery, invention, etc., and also talk a little in detail with certain more examples about biomimetics because that is an interesting topic to talk about, right? So that is what we are going to discuss in this particular session. Uh, so yeah, so let us start with our extra session. That is the first. Let's talk about what is basically research, right? And how it is structured, right? So the research structure helps us to create research basically, which is quantifiable, verifiable, replicable, and defensible, right? So these were also, asked to you in a question. Only the last, term was changed, and it was made as commercially viable. But actually, whenever you are doing research, it has to be quantifiable. I explained why. It has to be verifiable, it has to be replicable, and it has to be defensible, right? Even if somebody comes up with an anomaly that, oh, you reported that there were 10 stripes in this particular insect, but I have an insect that fits all other, things that you have said, but it has 11 stripes. How do you defend your work, right? So you will probably come up with another explanation for the same, that, okay, let us just sequence the genome of both these kinds of insects and let us find out whether there is some minor difference in the genome, right? Maybe that minor difference is what is, controlling how many stripes are supposed to be there on the coat or the surface of this particular insect, right? So there should be some way you can defend your work, right? There can be questions that can be asked to you, that how can you say this? Why did you assume that this is the case? Right. So maybe there was some, experiment based on which you came to that conclusion that you might not have reported in your actual work. So you can just show them that experiment. See, this, I also had the same doubt as you are having right now. For that, I did check, I did perform this experiment, and this is a result I got. Based on that, I am writing what I am writing. Right. So you should be able to defend your work. That is what. So research is defined as a creation of new knowledge and or the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way so as to generate new concepts, methodologies and understandings, right? So for instance, if you are working on developing therapeutics, right? Your lab is working on developing therapeutics. Some of the people who are working are, some of the people in your lab are working on cancer therapeutics, some are working on, hypertension related therapeutics, some are working on cardiovascular diseases, some are working on, neurodegeneration disorders, etc. But the core principle is to work on different kinds of therapeutics. So there are maybe, substance or chemical synthesis that is being done in your lab, and you know that these are the kind of chemicals that can go and interact with these kinds of domains, which can, help in, maintaining this particular condition in the way that it is going, or it can help in improving this particular condition, etc. Right? So in that way, if you are creating a new, compound that is going to go and treat a particular type of cancer or a particular kind of, cardiovascular disease, then that is research. But another form of research would be that there is already a commercially available drug, right? For instance, say metformin for diabetes, right, is an already commercially available drug. Now you look at the composition of metformin and you see that, oh, I think this drug could even work somehow in reducing inflammation in this particular neurodegenerative disorder, right? So you are repurposing that drug to another disease, and you are, carrying out a research to find out if it is working efficiently in that particular disease also, right? And you find out, oh wow, it is giving a very good outcome when I'm using it for this XYZ disease, even apart from diabetes, right? So this disease is very different from diabetes. The mechanisms that are being affected are also different, but there are some few common players at the molecular or at the cellular levels, due to which, this same drug can work on a very different kind of disease also. It can help relieving or ameliorating some of the symptoms of this disease as well, right? So now I am prescribing, I am researching on that. I am, presenting my data, and now based on that data, there can be some trials that can be performed in humans, and then Based on that, it might be approved for some other disorder also, not just diabetes, right? That is also a research. That is a research in which you have taken a pre-existing drug, for instance, or knowledge about a pre-existing experiment, and you have implicated that same knowledge or applied it elsewhere to basically come to a new outcome altogether, right? So that is also how research is done, right? It could be both the kinds are research, and both the kinds will actually benefit the society, right? Then, apart from this, research is heavily dependent on ideas, right? The ideas could be vague that, okay, I want to treat cancer, right? It is a very vague idea, or it is a very general statement, or it is a very vague idea, because I am not thinking about, okay, I need to look at this particular variation in the triple negative breast cancer is what I want to look at, or I want to basically improve the chemotherapy or the immunotherapy that is giving to being given to patients in who are suffering from this particular cancer. I'm just saying that I want to develop therapeutics for cancer, right? That is a very broad statement. Then, based on this, I need to narrow my statement down and come to a very valid question, right? So, based on initial observations and based on existing research of literature, I will state what my problem is, right? So, I want to work on cancer therapeutics. Now I want to search literature, survey literature, and come to a conclusion which is the cancer in which therapeutics are not working. Whatever therapeutic was working, the cancer is now becoming resistant to that. And what is the area that I can work on in this? So I will state my problem, right? Based on this new problem, then I will operate, you know, define operational definitions of constructs, or I will generate a research hypothesis, right? So I will say, for instance, that these are the kind of therapeutics that were initially being given to patients who were suffering from this particular kind of cancer, but we are now seeing that it is bringing upon drug resistance, and cancer is not going away, or it is recurring, or it is relapsing. So we need to target another mechanism, not the one that it was being targeted by this previous drug, but another mechanism, so that I can effectively, relieve a patient of this particular kind of cancer, right? So there will be a theory. Then, based on this theory, I will generate a hypothesis. Once I get a hypothesis, I will design my research to prove that hypothesis. I will do sampling and measurement. Then I'll obtain data, which is basically observation. I need to make observations out of my data. I need to quantify it, make statistical analysis verifications, and after this verification is done, I need to present it, and I need to, put it out to the other research community also, so that they can, if they want, they can verify my claims, or they can work upon that. And then based on that, they might come up with their own independent theory, their own independent, set of experiments that can actually help in improving what I have already said, right? So that is how the research structure helps us to create research, right? Which is quantifiable, verifiable, replicable, as well as defensible. And then let us briefly talk about what is discovery versus what is invention, right? So these are two examples that are given. For instance, there are extra uh, terrestrial objects that we know of, right? For instance, the sun, the star, etc., right? They are outside of the earth, but we know about them. That this is the sun, this is a star, this particular shooting star is a comet, this is this one, this is that one, right? We know all this, right? Or a meteor is falling that looks like a shooting star, etc., right? But there would have been an instance when it was first, noticed or first discovered, right? So that time when something is first noticed is actually referred to as discovery. That thing was already there, but it is now that we have become aware of that thing, right? So, for instance, air around is has always been surrounding us, right? But there was some point in time when you guys were taught in your school that okay, we are surrounded by air which has maybe 70% nitrogen, maybe 20-25%, 30% oxygen, some percentage of carbon dioxide and other gases, etc. Right? That is when you became aware that, or you discovered that the air around you has oxygen in it, right? That is how you are able to survive, right? But it is not that oxygen was not present in the air that is surrounding you before, right? It was still there, right? So you are becoming aware of something that already exists. That is discovery. Then what is invention? That something did not exist. You have basically created a new thing, right? For instance, um, uh, light. Over here, the example that is given is of a light bulb, right? Light bulb is something that did not exist in nature, right? Only sun, stars, those were the sources of light, right? There was no synthetic source of light that was always there in nature, right? The synthetic source of light through these filaments that come and form a circuit, it was actually invented, right? So that is invention. So the concept of discovery indicates the process finding something that exists but is not known or recognized yet, while the concept of invention, on the other hand, indicates the process of devising something that does not exist at all, right? So that is what is the difference between discovery versus invention. Then when we talk about biomimetics, so I said that we are going to discuss a few examples of biomimetics. So these are the first two or three, I think, are examples from this Carnegie Museum of Natural History, and I've taken it from their website. So this is basically the a limb of a frog or a lizard, right? So it can you see that there are some rigids over sorry the ridges that are there in its digits, right? So they have basically tagged it as a totally awesome way of climbing. So that is wordplay over here. So what happens over here? It is actually a lizard, right? It is a gecko, which is a kind of lizard. So geckos can walk up smooth surfaces like stone walls and even glass, right? So we know that there are multiple, organisms that can walk on the wall also. For instance, a normal house lizard can also walk. But what is very spectacular about gecko is that even very smooth surfaces like glass and all, it can smoothly walk on, right? So the scientists, like when they saw this, they were very intrigued by the concept that how is it possible that they are able to, even traverse very smooth surfaces. So they discovered that tiny microscopic hairs on toes help them stick to the surfaces, right? So their toes basically have very tiny hairs on them, which will help them stick onto surfaces. By mimicking gecko toes, we have developed adhesives, a way to close wounds without stitches and more. Right? So there are multiple adhesives that work on the similar concept. Earlier, whenever you used to get a very deep cut, you always had to get stitches done, right? But now, up to some depth, wherein earlier stitching was the only way that it could be sealed. There are some specific or some special bandits that are available these days that you can just pinch both the sides and you can just put that bandit so that it will have that strong adhesive that it will keep these two walls of the cuts together, right? So that has the study of these stores basically has helped us design these kinds of things that are of use to humans. Then, this is basically a herbarium from Carnegie Museum, and it represents this particular peculiar looking flower, right? So this is basically a story which basically led to the development of Velcro fastening. You know, the Velcro that people use on jackets or shoes or some other, storage materials. The Velcro that is used came from these tiny, the study of these flowers, right? So in 1941, engineer George T. Mestrel was walking his dog when he noticed birds, right? These plants are known as birds. So sticking to both of them, right? So what he saw was that what these birds had was that two of them were sticking to each other, right? When they tried to remove it, this they found it very difficult to pull it apart, right? When he studied the birds under magnification, he found their clinging property was a result of hundreds of tiny hooks. So there are very microscopic on, like some of them you can see over here also, but on a microscopic level, you can see that there are even more number of very tiny hooks that are there, right? Which is how they are held so closely together, and it is so difficult to pull them apart. Then this observation sparked the idea for the very useful invention we know as Velcro fastening, right? So that is true. Velcro is also an outcome of kind of biomimetic. Then other such observations that changed our understanding forever include the bullet train, right? So Japan is very famous for its bullet trains, right? So this is a one particular model of a train, which is Shinkansen 500 series, and it was basically, mimicked from the beaks of a kingfisher. So the kind of, kingfisher has a very small body, it has a very sharp long beak, right? So that gives it good aerodynamics and it helps it go very fast, countering the air. So that is what this basically represents. The aerodynamics of streamlined design of improved Japanese high-speed train Shinkansen 500 series were modeled after the beak of kingfisher bird, right? There are other such examples that we know about. For instance, we know these people, most of us do. They are Oliver and Wilbur Wright, and they have basically discovered airplane, right? So they had, they were very intrigued by nature and how, birds were flying or how kites could fly. And based on that, and based on their understanding of through what they had already seen in nature, they have basically come to, they had come to a point wherein they designed the first, this glider like plane that could actually fly, right? Uh, then this person is basically Archimedes. We know about the Archimedes principle, right? What the Archimedes principle says is that whatever weight of, sorry, if you put a weighted substance in water, right? The amount of water that thing displaces is its actual weight in water, right? So for instance, if we put a 5 kg a thing in water and it displaces around 5 kg of water, right? So that is the weight of that substance. That is what Archimedes basically said. There are multiple other examples that are present, right, which have only come to be because of some, very key observations that were made by very great people whose minds worked in that way, right? Uh, okay, so that is why we should be very aware of our surroundings, and that is, one of a great learning that if you are aware about your surrounding, if you are always asking questions, then even you might be able to solve a very crucial problem, or you might be able to come up with a very good product, right? Which has a very, it has a great deal of utility in our lives. And then let us also briefly go through the R-class model of research once again, right? So, what does R-class model of research say? So, in research and evaluation, first we need to seek to generate new knowledge, right? This information, and we need to get information for decision making, right? First, we need to gather lots of information and we need to that is the broader area. Then we need to focus this into like after we have gathered multiple information, we need to see what should be the focus of our research, right? So then we should focus. It should either be researcher focused or in terms of business, it should be stakeholder focused. Once we have focused to the point of research, we now need to understand that what could be the key experiments that we could plan, and based on the what is the question that we are trying to answer, what do we think based on the earlier research literature knowledge that we already have, what do we expect the outcome to be, right? So that will be the hypothesis and formation of the key questions, right? Once these questions are formed, we need to see how we are going to solve these particular questions. So we are no longer talking about what the field is, what is already known in the field, what is not known in the field, etc., etc. Now we are only focusing on what is our research focus, what is the question we are asking, and what is the method we are doing to solve this question, right? So method methods come again after that. After we have performed these experiments, we need to observe what is the outcome of these experiments, right? So once we understand what is the outcome of these experiments, we can make research recommendations that this is what we found. Based on this, we think this can also be true, or this is further research that can be done, right? And then we will extrapolate our result to the existing field that we are talking about, and then we will report it to the stakeholders, or we will publish the results, right? Based on what is the field you are in, whether you are in research or whether you are in this business model, the other one that is being discussed, right? And what is hypothesis building? So we have already discussed about a similar projection early on also. So hypothesis is basically a statement which is probably going to be the outcome of your research, right? So based on the existing literature you have, you try to understand that literature, and based on that you suggest that I think this is because of this, right? And now, to prove that this is because of this, you are going to do some experiments and you are going to report your results and you are going to come to a conclusion, right? So the key, ingredient for hypothesis building is first doing literature review or literature survey, or understanding your domain very well, right? So that is where theory and idea come from, right? Then we build a hypothesis. Then, as I said, we do our experiments. We will look at our observations. We will quantify our observations, and then we will do some analysis of whatever we have gotten, and then we will publish it, right? And we will either prove our hypothesis in this way, or it might disprove our hypothesis if what we are getting, the outcome that we are getting, is not what we had expected, right? So, in this case, there are two ways that we have been studying. One could be inductive reasoning, the other is deductive reasoning. Usually, in research, we follow deductive reasoning, right? Inductive reasoning doesn't always seem to be very productive when it comes to research. First, let us go over what this is, then we'll study what is deductive reasoning. So, inductive reasoning, there are some set of observations based on which we have our hypothesis, based on which we perform experiments, and there are some additional observations. We again perform experiments. After all, it comes to a hypothesis, where a stage where hypothesis needs to be improved, right? So after this, either it is accepted and it becomes a theory, or it is rejected and then we start over again, right? While in case of deductive reasoning, The only small change that has been made over here when we do research is that first there is a hypothesis, then observations, right? So based on pre-existing observations, we are not coming to a hypothesis, right? We are, based on pre-existing literature per se, we are forming a hypothesis, which then we are performing experiments, coming to observations in our experiments, doing additional, experiments, having additional observations, and then the cycle remains the same, right? This schematic for inductive reasoning is a little different than what we had studied earlier, but when we talk in terms of core research, this is what we follow. But otherwise, what is inductive reasoning? That based on a very small sample we are coming to a conclusion, right? We are not at all doing experiments or experiments to verify what our statement is, right? We are just straight away coming to a conclusion. It doesn't even include a hypothesis, right? So yeah, that is it for the second part of discussion as well. Uh, yeah. So I'll just stop sharing the screen. Okay. So I hope that you have gone through these, concepts and these questions that were discussed. And if at all there is any problem, you can actually turn on your mic and you can ask if there is any doubt. If not, then we'll have a similar session for, yeah, Joseph. Should I unmute you? I think you can unmute and talk. Yeah, I cannot really unmute anybody. I can just mute all the participants. That is not done currently. Yeah. So meanwhile, as Joseph, I think, is not, he can't turn on his mic. We can wait for that. But what I wanted to inform you is that if there are no other doubts, we will have a similar kind of session next week. On next Sunday, it is scheduled for week 3 questions as well as concepts. Till then, I think you will be able to go through that week's lectures that have already been uploaded. Um, okay. So if there is no other doubt, I'll just end the session. Let me just stop the recording and end the session.